this way. My online patients, they have told me this way. Okay, so that is what I want to say you. Nothing to be so afraid of. It is just a fungus. It was then and there long back itself. I mean, not just something new. So all I want to say is black fungus is nothing. This belongs to the Rhizopus or the Mucor family. It is just a fungus. This was present long back also, and this COVID. What role is this COVID second wave actually creating? Is COVID second wave is actually doing? You need three things for this to prevent this. First and foremost, you have to take your vaccination. You have to take your vaccination. The second thing is the very big myth. What we people are usually doing is we are always using these nasal vapor rubs, like we are using this warm vapor complexes, so that we are actually irritating our nasal mucosa. That is leading to more common entry of these fungus. It is present everywhere in the air, everywhere. But the thing is, like, it's like, see, it's like normal bacteria, it's like normal fungus, it's like normal viruses. Everyone is not having the thing. Only once your body is immunocompromised, there are chances of getting this fungi. That is what is happening, especially when your body is immunocompromised. Then definitely there are chances of having a mucormycosis. Apart from that, you don't need to be afraid of anything regarding black fungus. What black fungus is actually doing, it is obviously it is affecting our pulmonology system, it is affecting our entire nasal cavity, our eyes, ophthalmic, and it is also affecting our cerebral whatever we have. So we have all our speakers to speak on this. So all I would like to say you, this black fungus, stop using most of the people those who are non-medico here, all I would like to say you, please stop using this constant irritants to your nasal mucosa. Do not use these vapors constantly. Even if you are COVID negative, do not use this. This is a very big lesson today, because this is only irritating your nasal mucosa, and as a result your normal bacteria, viruses, fungi, everything is getting destroyed, and your body is losing its immune capability. As a result, these fungus are entering. So once this fungus is entering, what exactly majorly it is doing is, when this fungus is entering, it enters, obviously it enters through your pulmonary system, it is entering through your nasal cavity, and then it affects your pulmonary system. What it is doing there is, it is mainly clogging your arteries, it is creating thrombus, it is creating ischemia, and it is leading to death. That is the reason we are all afraid of this. That is the reason for the death of black fungus. And that is all I would like to say you. We have our other speakers with us to explain this thing very much betterly to us, and that's all. I would like to end my speech here, and I would like to ask Dr. Baishali Shorkar from our ENT department. She'll be able to explain you much better. Thank you all. I hope, and whatever doubts you have, then please we'll clear it at the end of the show. Okay? Thank you so much. দিদি তোমাকে দিলাম।
Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Visible. Yeah.
Yes,
visible.
yes.
Okay, I come to introduction. Basically, what is mucormycosis? Mucormycosis already to some extent it is briefed by Dipmala. So I am going to say some more about it and the ENT aspect of it, and how to manage it, how can we further combat this situation. So basically mucormycosis is a fast spreading angio-invasive fungal infection seen mainly in the immunocompromised individual, and it is caused by fungi in the order of mucorales. The most common type that causes mucormycosis are Rhizopus species and the Mucor species. What is the epidemiology? It is a rare but serious fungal infection, also known as black fungus. The incidence has risen in the wake of ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and uncontrolled blood sugar levels during this time. So which start from the nose and the sinus and spread to the eye and brain in a manner of few days to weeks. Mucormycosis, it carries a very high mortality of 50 to 85%. It has no racial factor that predisposes to it, and sex is also not affected in this case. What's the route of infection? Mainly inhalation, ingestion, implantation, as well as traumatic inoculation. Pathophysiology, as said already by our first speaker, it is angioinvasion that causes vessel thrombosis, and finally necrosis of the tissue, and that actually the causative factor of all the things that is happening. Type of mucormycosis. There are mainly 5 types of mucormycosis: rhinocerebral, rhino-orbitocerebral, pulmonary, gastrointestinal, primary cutaneous, and disseminated, out of which the rhino-orbitocerebral type has the highest frequency and mortality. So when do we suspect it? First of all, if a patient is having COVID-19 infection, the patient has diabetes, mellitus, and uncontrolled sugar values, as well as if the patient is having history of steroid uses. Clinical presentation, the patient can come with sinusitis, nasal blockage or congestion, nasal discharge. The discharge can be blackish or bloody, local pain on the cheekbone. One side, there can be facial pain, numbness, as well as swelling. And there can be blackish discoloration over the bridge of the nose or palate, loosening of the tooth, jaw involvement, blood or double vision with pain or sudden loss of vision. Thrombosis, necrosis, skin lesion can be present, and there can be associated chest pain, pleural effusion, worsening of the respiratory symptom, headache, altered sensorium, focal seizure. So rhinocerebral mucormycosis, the 50% of our case occur in diabetes mellitus, and of all the cases, 50% of total cases of mucormycosis consist of the rhinocerebral mucormycosis. Usually it occurs during an episode of DKA, where there is disruption of the host defense mechanism, thereby permitting growth of the rhizopus. Such growth is inhibited by correction of acidosis. Pulmonary mucormycosis. It is seen commonly in neutropenia, patient having chemotherapy, leukemia. Clinical presentation is dyspnea, cough, chest pain, fever. Radiologically, there can be chest consolidation, isolated mass cavitation, wedge-shaped infarct. CT scan is the best to detect the extent. Gastrointestinal, it is very rare, and it occurs extremely malnourished person or in case of children. Clinical feature include abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting. It may present as intra-abdominal abscess or perforation of the viscus. It needs biopsy, and prognosis is extremely poor. Cutaneous mucormycosis. Trauma is the predisposing factor, invasive locally, and it may lead to necrotizing fasciitis, and mortality is up to 80%. Treatment is mainly surgical debridement. Disseminated, it spread hematogeneously. Pulmonary mucormycosis has a high incidence of dissemination. Most common site of dissemination is brain, followed by spleen, heart, skin, and other organs. So what's the approach to diagnosis? First, we should think about microbiological tests. 2 deep or endoscopic guided nasal swab or scraping of the crust or nasal mucosa is to be taken, and it should be sent for biopsy. Direct microscopy and the fungal culture to be done. Histological examination, in general, it reveals broad branching hyphae of the rhizopus invading the tissues. Radiological test is the investigation of choice, where we do contrast enhanced MRI covering the PNS and orbit with screening of the brain, plus minus non-contrast CT scan PNS and orbit with the base of the skull if suspecting a bony involvement. Contrast CT scan covering the PNS and orbit with brain if MRI is not available or if it is not visible. Now, in this all radiological, we will find air fluid level in the sinus and involvement of deep tissue according to the patient condition. CT scan of the lung can be done in case of pulmonary mucormycosis, where we can see like cavitation, consolidation. Here we can see the cavitation that is present. So how to treat? First and foremost, we have to diagnose early, and the treatment is to be done by the multidisciplinary team. And however, even with adequate team, the mortality rate is very high. Medical treatment. We have to do standard care, treat the comorbidities, oral and nasal hygiene like nasal wash, oral gargle, control the blood sugar level, and see the input-output charting. Antifungals are there. Liposomal amphotericin B is a drug of choice, where we give it 5 to 10 milligram per kg per day, up to a total of 2 to 3 gram. Preload it, we have to preload it with 500 to 1000 IV fluid to minimize the renal toxicity. When we are giving this drug, we have to regularly monitor the renal function test and the serum magnesium level. If liposomal amphotericin is not available, then we will use the conventional amphotericin or amphotericin B deoxycholate 1 milligram per kg per day. What's the duration of medical therapy? Precise duration is not ascertained. In general, it goes from weeks to months of therapy. If immune defect is resolved, like diabetes is controlled, neutropenia definitely resolved, then the therapy can be deferred or it can be stopped after resolution of the signs and symptoms of infection and substantial radiological improvement. As a step-down therapy, we can use tablet posaconazole 300 milligram BD on first day and then followed by 300 milligram OD up to 3 weeks. Surgical treatment. We have to do early debridement of all the necrotic tissue by a team of expert ENT and ophthalmologists to decrease the load of the fungus and facilitate medical team. And orbital excitation may be required in cases of gross involvement. Repeated debridement may be needed, and follow-up can be done on the basis of clinical symptom, endoscopy, radiology as per patient profile. So the keynote. High degree of suspicion is necessary. Patients with COVID-19, diabetes mellitus, steroid use in the treatment of COVID are at high risk. Prevention is better than cure. Don't delay the treatment for the lack of confirmatory diagnosis. Triple-pronged treatment, that is controlled blood sugar, antifungals, and surgical debridement. Thank you. Thank you, Deepmala.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Vaishali.
you.
Thank you for explaining so well. Thank you. And your slide very helpful. Thank you. Next, we would like to go to Dr. Anisha Sharkar. Anisha, unmute call. We'll go to Dr. Anisha Sharkar, she's a pulmonologist, and we'd like to hear more about this disease. Thank you so much.
Hello. Good evening, all. Am I audible? Hello.
Yeah.
Yes,
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 you are
yes.
audible.
Yes, you are. You are.
Okay, thank you. So, as pointed out by Vaishali, the commonest subtype of the mucormycosis is the rhino-orbitocerebral mucormycosis. So, what makes it biggest concern for us? Because this mucormycosis is a very rapidly progressing pathology. So, obviously, prompt treatment and management is very, very essential, because otherwise a minute delay in the starting of the management can lead to a very grave prognosis. And one thing we have to keep in mind, that even after prompt treatment and the best of the efforts, mucormycosis has very, very guarded prognosis, and many a times we may not be able to salvage the eye and maintain it, we may have to go for destructive procedures. So the quickest the management, the better it is. So is everybody at risk? No, definitely not. As pointed out by the previous speaker, person who have uncontrolled diabetes, who are on high dose steroid for a long period, who had a ICU admission and was on prolonged oxygen therapy, and immunocompromised, already immunocompromised patients, like patients having AIDS, patients on having cancer on chemotherapy. These patients are at increased risk. Now I'm going to mainly focus on the ocular symptoms. So when should you seek an ophthalmologist help and go to an eye clinic? So the main symptoms are their general symptoms, like you can have headache, fever, congestion, and to focus on the ocular symptoms, you can have a pain and redness around the eye. You can have a reddish discoloration around the eye, and proptosis, which we call protrusion of the eyeball forward protrusion of the eyeball. If these things are happening, we should definitely seek for an ophthalmologist help. Then other things are ptosis. Ptosis we call drooping of the upper eyelid of our eyes. So ptosis, proptosis, pain and redness around the eye, watering of the eye. And then ophthalmoplegia. This means the cranial nerves which are concerned with the ocular movement, the movement of the eyeball may be affected. So what happens is you can have double vision because you are not able to move the eye, so you can have a double vision. So if these things are happening without a delay, you should opt for an ophthalmologist consultation. And you can also have numbness in the infraorbital region, like the numbness over the below the lower eyelid. So these are the things mainly which an ophthalmologist is concerned with. Now coming to the treatment aspect, mainly as previously said, mainly we shall go for IV antifungals followed by oral antifungals, and the duration of the treatment is to be is according to the severity of these symptoms and the patient profile. So even after these, and yes, debridement of the necrotic tissue, that is very, very important. That necrotic tissue should be surgically debrided to minimize the fungal load. And then if nothing of this helps, then we have to go for exenteration surgery, as already said. Exenteration surgery means we have to take out the eyeball as a whole along with some part of the orbital wall. The eyeball and the orbital wall needs to be taken out. So so mucormycosis, orbital mucormycosis especially has a very grave prognosis. So there is definitely something to worry about and something to be concerned about. And these things we should keep in mind, especially the people who are in the high risk group. So, and we must seek ophthalmologist help as soon as possible, and so that we can maximum vision can be given back and the eye can be salvaged. So thank you. Anything?
Thank you so much, Anisha. Thank you. Okay, but one question I have for Dr. Anisha and Dr. Boishalidhi, for both of you. I would like to ask you, when we had the first wave of COVID, that time we didn't have so much of mucormycosis. But why this time? Is it because of the mutant strain of the COVID, which is happening in the second wave? Is it because of that we are having? Because in the first lockdown, we hardly heard about this mucormycosis. So I just want to ask you, please answer me. Because patients might be having this question also.
The exact reason nobody knows, but the thing is that mostly because of might not be because of the Newton strain, but might be because of the irritation of the nasal mucosa by the
Mucosa.
fungus and the mask we are using, the prolonged use of mask, no? So same mask we are using for a prolonged period and we are not washing the mask, we are not changing our mask. So this moist environment is a place where mucus grows. So that leads to probably that might be a reason.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now we would like to go to Dr. Piyash Gargari. Hi. Yeah. We would like
Hello.
to know he's a budding endocrinologist. So we would like to know about some diabetic ketoacidosis since mucormycosis is mostly related to that. So please help us with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dipamala. Hope I am audible as well as visible. Am I? Hello?
Yes, you are.
Hello?
You are.
Okay. Okay, thanks a lot. So, first of all, let us know what this mucormycosis is, as has been lucidly exemplified by my previous speakers, that this mucormycosis is a group of fungi, mostly saprophytic. That means they usually live on dead or decaying substances, as the common sense prevails. But why does this mucormycosis pandemic is happening in this situation? First of all, this mucormycosis occurs in any individual who is immunosuppressed. What does that mean? That means if any person is diabetic with a unregulated blood glucose elevation, any person having steroid use for long duration, any person who is immunosuppressed for say liver or kidney or heart transplantation and on some immunosuppressory regimen, for which the body's immune system is losing the war. That is, the body's immune system is less capable to fight this virus, to fight this fungus. As we all know, there are multiple and there are various groups of fungi that remain within and over our protective layer of skin or any mucous membrane, but that hardly causes any infection. The reason is that our body's immune system is capable enough to prevent those immune assailants. But what if those immune barrier gets broken down? Say, for an example, as my previous speaker has exemplified nicely, that if a person has inadvertently put his finger over the nose, then he is breaching the epithelial, that is the skin defense over the nose, and after that the fungus is gaining access to the bloodstream. And once in the bloodstream, the effect of the steroids, the effects of the high blood glucose level, as well as the effect of the immunosuppressive medications, that hinders the body's immune system to mount an effective assault against the offending organism. So as a reason, the mucormycosis gains an upper hand. And the peculiar specialty of this fungus is it is an angioinvasive. What does that mean? That means it has a predilection for infecting the blood vessels. So when the blood vessels are infected, as you can well jolly understand, the area that is supplied by the blood vessel gets necrotic or deadened, and this necrotic or deadened area is colored by black, as is most commonly known as our medical terminology as gangrene, which is colored as black. So the rapidly deteriorating condition occurs due to the cutoff of the blood supply of the concerned organ, and that's the exact reason why this fungus is so deadly, because once the blood supply is cut off, the dead and devitalized tissue becomes the bed for the fungus to grow, and from where the fungus can invade our other body systems and can also jeopardize the vital functions as well. So that's why the fungus can readily spread over the body in 2 to 3 days because of this angio-invasive, that is invading the blood vessel property, and that may be initiated by a simple blurring of the vision, or a simple serosanguinous, that is blood mixed watery discharge from the nose, which may rapidly culminate into swelling, redness over one half of the body. Even in late cases, there may be formation of the black eschar, which may be the late stage of the disease where the fungus has already invaded the distal portions of the body. And for this reason, provide bed, that is to remove the nutrition area for the fungus to preserve the life, we have to sacrifice the organs that it had invaded. Like my previous speaker has said, even for the eye, we know that the eye is a very vital organ for us. But even then, we may have to go for bilateral orbital exenteration, that is bilateral eye removal, which may lead to complete blindness of the patient post-operatively. And that's a pretty hard thing to hear, because the patient, when you will hear that you are going to be blind for the rest of your life, the patient's life is miserable. But trust me, compared to the deadliness of this virus, this is nothing. Because if it is not done, the patient is surely going to be in trouble, or patient is going to be die into next 2 to 3 days. And as it is told that it can be managed by surgical as well as medical management, as have nicely exemplified my previous speaker. I am going to discuss what about the sugar control of the patients. Now, as we can remember, the sugar, what does it do? The excessive blood glucose level, as is commonly understood, is a nidus for the organism, which can lead to various infections throughout the body. It can lead to delayed healing of the wounds. It can lead to persistence of infection. Why? Because it can lead to suppression of the immune system of the body. That is, our body immune system cannot mount an adequate defense against the invading organisms. So it's true for the mucor patients. When the mucor gets in the body circulation in presence of hyperglycemia, that is high blood sugar level, the primary defense system, that is the neutrophils, cannot mount an adequate assault against those invaders, and as a result, the secondary immune systems, that is the cell mediator or the humoral immunity system, they also becomes ineffective in presence of hyperglycemia. Now, what does this hyperglycemia means? That is, if your blood sugar level is persistently remaining above 250, above 300, along with you are getting a dose of steroid for your COVID. You mind it, the steroid is both an immunosuppressant, for which it is used for COVID treatment, but as well as it can lead to hyperglycemia. That is, it can lead to raised blood glucose level in your body. So it acts as a bi-edged sword. That is, if not used judiciously, it can also be cutting your own body. And so that's the reason that for this bi-edged assault, the COVID may be complicated with a follow-up case of mucormycosis. Now, as an endocrinologist, I would always recommend to any patient who is prone to develop mucormycosis or is suspected to be having mucormycosis to please continue your oral anti-hyperglycemic agents, or OADs as we commonly tell, like the commonly known as sugar drugs, with exception of certain drugs like metformin in some cases where the patient has been admitted in ICU, where it may lead to lactic acidosis or it may lead to other complications only in that case, or in certain cases called the certain group of drugs called the phloxins, that is the dapagliflozin, canagliflozin. In those cases of mucormycosis, there is a possibility of DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis, as my previous speakers have told. What is diabetic ketoacidosis? It is actually a condition complicated by hyperglycemia or the leading to dehydration of the patient. This persistent hyperglycemia complicated with mucormycosis leads to eventual depletion of the whole body water, rendering the body to be relatively dehydrated, that is deficient of water. As a result, the end organs, that is our vital organs, they have dysfunction in doing their regular duties, and as a result, the multi-organ dysfunction, that is the multi-organ failure, gradually supervene. So to prevent this, we have to cut down the basic assault. That is, we have to cut down the basic dehydration property. So those drugs that may cause dehydration, like canagliflozin, etc., or any phloxin group of drugs, they may be restricted. Rather, the patient should be told to get adequate amount of fluid and adequate amount of hydration to be maintained. Also, his sugar levels should be regularly monitored and it should be regularly checked. The optimum sugar level pre-meal would be 80 to 130 milligram per deciliter, and post-meal should be 180 to 200 milligram per deciliter. And for those patients with on steroid therapy, it is preferable to go for subcutaneous insulin regimen. It might be because with premix insulin therapy, or it might be with basal bolus insulin therapy as recommended by your physician. It might be requiring 2 shots of insulin daily, or it might be requiring 4 shots of insulin daily. It might be all or else you might, if the condition is critical enough, you might be needing an ICU, or you might be needing a continuous insulin infusion where the dehydration level is severe. At that region, you can know that the peripheral sites are dehydrated. That is, your insulin is not going to be absorbed if given peripherally. So we have to make an intravenous channel and put the insulin into your blood. But again, there is a point of caution. As you can know that the mainstay of therapy of mucormycosis is amphotericin B, which is notorious for causing hypokalemia. And we are also, in those cases of decay, we are also giving continuous insulin infusion, which is also again prone for causing hypokalemia. What does that mean? That means that can lead to fall in the serum potassium level precipitously. That can lead to adverse events over the heart, especially the conduct subsystem. So that's the reason in those patients with mucormycosis, serum potassium level estimation and monitoring remains the mainstay of therapy. As well as you have to regularly check the urine output of the patient to see whether the patient is developing any kidney injury, as is notoriously done by amphotericin B. As is known, it is a very toxic drug, but you have no other options apart from this as a first line. Only in some cases, the liposomal amphotericin B is available, and the rest of the cases we may have to be used with other salts like deoxycholate, etc. Now, regarding those cases with hypokalemia, in those cases might be an intravenous infusion of potassium should be done, and in some cases the peripheral potassium administration may not be sufficient, and in large doses of potassium cannot be given by the peripheral line, whereby a central line which might be requiring. So in a nutshell, what I have told, that mucormycosis is a deadly organism. How it is called the black fungus, as I have known. How does it causes its deadly manifestations, and how this can be averted, and as well as how we can treat the associated comorbidities in the form of hyperglycemia, and what other measures should we take into account. With this, I thank to the organizers and I conclude my remarks. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Piyashda. It was awesome. Thank you, Dr. Vaishali. Thank you, Anisha. Thank you, Piyashda. Thank you so much. All of you, any doctors here, any one of you have any question, and you can please unmute and you can speak up if you have any questions. This was a very important information all these three speakers have shared with us. I think it was helpful. Okay, so no questions from your side. Fine. And what about the audience? You people have any question? Please unmute and you can ask us. You can ask us if you want to know. If you have any doubt, you can ask. Any question, anyone?
Hello.
Hello.
I have one question, Deepmala.
Yes, ask.
Can
please.
any doctor? Yes, my question is when this
Yes.
black fungus, whether this black fungus occurs with only the patients who have suffered this
Of
corona
diabetes.
disease, or it can happen with anybody?
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Piyashda, you can answer this better.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Shurana. This black fungus, as I've already mentioned, is mainly a saprophytic organism which can be an assailant if there is a breach in the immune system in the body. That is, any patients with immunosuppression may be a potential target for the mucormycosis or black fungus. That is, a patient with long-standing uncontrolled diabetes, a patient with long-standing use of steroids, a patient with long-standing use of immunosuppressive medications for lung, kidney, or heart transplant, or any form of autoimmune diseases like SLE or etc., may be a potential candidate for this black fungus infection. And why this COVID times it has shown a research. Preliminary studies have shown that in COVID patients, there has been upregulation of certain receptors in the form of molecular mimicry among the epithelial defenses, which have been leading to increased adhesion of mucormycotic proteins into the epithelial cell line. So, for that reason, up till now, the mutant strain is being held responsible. Pending that, further research are awaited, and we are yet to know why, in the second wave of COVID pandemic, such a huge number of black fungus or mucormycosis is potentially seen. Again, this is not a color of the fungus, but it is the manifestation of the fungus leading to ischemia that has earned this notorious name. Thank you.
Thank you, doctor.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you, uncle, you were asking me about white fungus, yellow fungus, and your names
There are
like
variety
cryptococcus
of
and
fungus.
aspergillosis.
I have heard variety of fungus are coming in picture nowadays.
Yeah.
Black,
But always
white.
remember, like mucormycosis is more angio-invasive, as Piyashda has mentioned. It is more
Mainly this
angio-invasive. It is more harmful for our blood vessels. You have understood the
Mainly-
entire role pathogenesis.
No,
Okay.
Dr. Deepmala,
Anyone else? Any more questions? Yeah, hello? Yeah, hello? Hello. Any more questions anyone has? Moishalidi, you want to ask anything? We have Devanik Shorkar. He's a gastroenterologist. So you have any questions? Anyone want to know any details? Because today we had less number of speakers. So our program is almost over. So still we have time. Last day we didn't have time. Devanikda, you want to ask something? You want to ask, you want to comment something, then please say. Devanikta, if you wanna comment something, then please say.
Yeah, I wanted to ask. I mean, I was already asked, but the answer is well. So, about the steroids exacerbating mucormycosis.
Okay, does mucormycosis have any role in affecting the GI system? This question I have. Does mucormycosis have any role in affecting the GI system? Anyone can answer this. Does it affect the GI system? Piyashta, can you answer?
Yeah, actually, I want to answer it. There is a variety
Yeah,
of
sure. Bolo.
Yeah, there is a variety of mucormycosis which is called GI mucormycosis, gastrointestinal mucormycosis.
Okay.
As
Okay.
I already said, it affects the GI system. It mainly affects very malnourished person or in case of children. And the mechanism is totally same. And in this patient, it is very rare. And if it happens, then it is very detrimental for the patient, and the prognosis and mortality is very high for them.
Okay. Thank you. And as I had mentioned that, just tell me, just correct me if I'm wrong. I'm asking my patients not to take too much of steam inhalation. Suppose a patient is COVID negative. Many people they are coming from their office and they are often taking this steam inhalation. They are taking Carvol Plus for no reason, even if they are negative with COVID. Do you think that that is a proper method? I just want to know this. Vaishali, you can answer.
Anything excess is not good for health. If the patient is not needing it, then patient should not take it. Okay. If the patient is having symptoms like nasal congestion, then the patient can take. Otherwise, just a preventive measure, it is not recommended.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So any other questions? We still have time. So if anyone has any other question, then you can please unmute and you can ask. All your doubts will be cleared if you can ask us. And we have ENT doctor, we have a gastro doctor, we have endocrinologist, we have everyone here. We have an ophthalmologist, we have all of us here. So if you need any help, then please let us know. You can ask.
Put one more question?
Yes, ask. Sure, ask.
Whether this
Surely
black fungus
ask.
affect the eye zone only, or it can affect the vital parts of the body also?
It is affecting the vital parts of the body, uncle.
Harmful to the eyes only, or whether it can affect the vital parts of the body of the patient?
Piyashta, bolo. Piyashta, bolo.
Hello. Just now, I can report a case which I have seen almost 2 weeks back, where the patient had mucormycotic involvement of the middle cerebral artery of the brain. As you know, that the middle cerebral artery supplies almost 50% of the brain. So you can know that how much devastating consequences can it lead to. That is, almost this patient will be behaving like a patient with a massive infarct or massive cerebral stroke for immediate purpose. And for that reason, any blood vessels can be involved in the body, especially though if the large blood vessels get involved, then yes, the vital parts can definitely be affected. And that's the reason this is so scary, because if the vital parts are affected, we cannot cut it out. Rather, we have to be dependent on the medications alone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That was well explained. Thank you, Piyashta. Thank you so much.
Very nice.
Uncle,
program.
got it cleared? Uncle, you got it cleared?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much. All of you won't waste more time. Yeah, sure. Ask.
My name is Sugandha Surana. I want to know, like, if the patient is due to COVID, is under ECMO. And he's undergoing ECMO for 2 weeks, and then doctor asks that it should go for ventilator later on. Is it like a protocol which is followed for the ECMO treatment?
Ma'am,
Or-
please wait. Ma'am, please wait. Ma'am, please hold on. Please unmute. Please mute your mic. Please mute your mic. Yeah, ma'am, now you can say. You can ask your question. Ma'am, you can ask your question.
I'm saying that if a patient due to COVID is under ECMO because of his lungs getting ruptured and pus is formed. So in that scenario, like how long does the treatment respond to it firstly? It also depends on the person, I agree, but how long does means you should give time that yeah, the person should be responding in such a particular time in ECMO in such scenario. And secondly, after ECMO, what is next? Once the ECMO is done, your pus is coming out, the airways are getting cleared. So what is next after ECMO?
Who can answer this? Vaishali Di? Okay, Priya, okay, say. Who wants to answer this question?
Hello.
Vaishali Di, will you be able to answer this? Or Piyasta, anyone? Yeah, hello? Piyasta?
Hello. May I?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. So first of all, we have to know what is an ECMO is. It actually tells about extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. So what does then corporeal means? Corporeal means body. So in this case, the oxygenation is happening outside the body. That is your in our lungs, what our lungs do, they oxygenate our blood in situ. But when the lungs are unable to oxygenate the blood in situ, that is in our body itself, then we need the ECMO machine. That is, we flush the blood in an extracorporeal, that is outside body circuit, make it oxygenated and return the oxygenated blood to the body. So this is the function of an ECMO. Thus, you can know that ECMO is essentially a life support system. Not it can predict the what and how the patient response will be. And patient may require ECMO for a long time, but it is usually seen that those patients who require ECMO are usually a severe category of patient who usually succumbs within a very small span of time due to other multi-organ dysfunction system. But yes, there has been many patients, at least I can cite 2 patients, among them being a doctor who has survived after being ECMO'd for about 1 month. So ECMO is actually a life support, not it can state about the prognosticate the patient.
So that I understood, sir, what exactly is ECMO, but I want to know, like after ECMO, once a ECMO process is complete, so what is next step for the doctors to go ahead with after ECMO for the patient? I mean, what exactly the patient should be doing so that he is healed to a better life? Or he will be continuously on the support of the oxygen?
Nothing is the ECMO actually is oxygenating your blood outside the body. That is, it is actually bypassing the lung. So here the lung is bypassed. As you can see that there is nothing beyond ECMO. That is, you cannot obviate a organ's function, but totally replacing it with another mode of treatment. And once you are replacing it one other mode of treatment, I don't think that there is a further increase in the mortality, because you are actually artificially creating a lung outside the body grossly. In crude form, you are artificially doing the work of the lung. So there is actually, you cannot do what is artificially done. Like say, if you are doing a thing manually, you are doing it by automated way. So when you are doing an automated way, you cannot bypass it further. That is fear. Now the second thing is how long the patient can stay. That again is a dubious thing, because how long the patient's body will be responding to the conventional treatment is again a matter of debate, because side by side the patient's lung is almost destroyed. That you have to keep in mind. And that destroyed lung, with that destroyed lung, how much the patient is capable of being transferred to ventilator. That is all where the patients having suffered multiple trauma, and how long the patient is going to suffer or going to respond is a matter of debate, and nobody can have a recommendation on that. Actually, it is a case by case discussion on case by case basis. Depending on the severity of the situation, the physician will decide.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ma'am, I hope your doubt was cleared.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Won't waste more time. And okay, you have any question? Anyone? If you have any more questions, you can post it to me. I'll get it solved. Okay. You all can WhatsApp us. Okay. Thank you so much, all of you. And with this, we would like to end our program. Okay, my speakers and everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone. Stay safe and stay COVID negative till then. All of you take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.
God bless
Bye,
you
bye.
all. Good night. Bye. Thank you so much.